Chris, do you want to respond?
Yeah. Up to 18 months ago, I was in a situation where they actually gave me £400,000 to increase my business. My business hasn't changed that much. We have reduced our sales down by about 25% through this recession, but it hasn't brought down that much. The banks have up to 18 months ago, I was taken out to lunch by them. Now they won't even contact me, won't even talk to me. I blame this whole situation on the greed of the banks. I have a bank, without mentioning its name, but it's got 8,000 business advisors, managers, who are there to help you succeed. They should be taken before the Advertising Standards Committee and I
suppose, Chris, that is exactly what we're talking about on today's World Have Your Say. It's whether you feel your bank, wherever you're watching BBC World News, is actually being a friend to you. It's helping you get the things that you want in life and that you think are realistic in life. Because after all, Chris isn't saying this is something new. He's saying, I've been doing this for a while. Suddenly the bank is changing the rules. Or do you agree with Ronnie, who's saying, well, actually, they may have made mistakes, taken too many risks before, and that it's good that they've changed their way of doing things. You can get in touch through the blog, worldhaveyoursay.com. Now, the first time World Have Your Say was on BBC World News was around a year ago, and we spoke to Julia in Portland in Oregon, and we can do so again. Hi, Julia, how are things?
Oh, they're pretty much the same as they were.
And if people heard you a year ago, you were telling us on that very day you'd lost your job, and by the sounds of things, you haven't found another one.
I have not. And I've had to take up going to school to try to increase my knowledge so I can get a job.
And who do you look to support you out of this situation? Is it just the government? Is it your state of Oregon? Or do the banks have a role to play here as well?
I think the banks have a role to play. I do believe, I appreciate the help that I am getting from the government now. But I get a little upset when I hear the banking industry try to blame this on the government when the banking industry has many lobbyists. They push for these reforms. The government does not work in a vacuum. They can't say that they don't know what these regulations are and it's just the government's fault that these regulations exist. They end up being predators and they push for those kind of lenient rules.
So, well, we'll let you go now, Julia. Thanks for speaking to us. I hope you find a job soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, that's Julia in Portland, a regular in the World Have Your Say community. Let's go from the northwest of the States to the south of Africa, to South Africa and Johannesburg to be precise, and another World Have Your Say regular. Sarah, you run a fair trade coffee company which operates all over sub-Saharan Africa. How has the economic downturn affected you, and has your bank supported you in the way Chris says his hasn't?
We have been somewhat affected, but I think we've been also sheltered compared to how the rest of the world has been affected.
Sarah, I'm just going to interrupt you. That's a little frustrating. I think our signal's breaking up. We'll sort that out and come back to you. In the meantime, let's go below you on the World Have Your Say screen here and speak to Aftershock, who's with us live from Delhi. He's the chairman of the National Academy of Visual Art. Sir, thank you for coming on. What's your contribution to our discussion?
Well, I think the global impression is that the banks have run amok. I don't know enough about finances, so I'm not in a position to judge. But let me say that in India, at least, because regulations were in place, because the banking system was not allowed to go haywire, we have fared better. It is true that we have come down from 9% GDP growth to perhaps 6%, but that's not so bad as in many other countries where, because of this financial meltdown, the consequence has been almost a negative growth. So I suppose regulations are necessary, but these regulations have to be effectively implemented and enforced. And I suppose India has been able to do it. That's my impression. But I don't know enough about finances to give really an expert opinion.
Well, we're going to go to Shimon a minute and hear some more messages, but directly above you on the screen we have Dr. Lang in Paris, who's been nodding his head saying, yes, we need more regulation. But what opponents of regulation say, sir, is that the state, whether it's in France or anywhere else, doesn't have the means to effectively enforce that regulation. Why are you so confident President Sarkozy can do that?
Oh, I don't think that President Sarkozy can do that alone. You know, you need a coordination of different economic policy, and unfortunately, I'm not too optimistic on the idea that we could get such a regulation. But the fact is that we are facing the worst slump since the 1999 crisis, and I think that Chris' testimony and Julia's testimony are really important, because we see the real effect on the real economy of this lack of regulation. You know, the job of banks is granting loans to the firms, to households, to people who are producing goods and who are consuming goods. It's not about going on the financial markets. But of course, if the states allow that, so why wouldn't they? Today they are asking for more bonuses on their rights if they are allowed to do so.
Okay, I'm left wondering, listening to you, sir, and I wonder if those of you watching have the same thoughts, is that even if those who advocate regulation have doubts about whether it can be enforced, is it worth passing the regulation through whichever parliament we're talking about if there's still a lack of confidence that they can be enforced? That might be something you want to pick up on the blog. We're going to go back to Sarah in South Africa, whose line we've sorted out. But first of all, let's hear from Shaimer again.
This from Nicole in Oklahoma City, saying the credit crisis convinced me to buckle down and pay off all my debt as quickly as possible. And Ann on worldhaveyoursay.com says, when banks have your money, they make more for themselves using it. And when you borrow money, you pay through the nose in interest. Either way, banks are the real winner. And Steve in Boston is a World Have Your Say regular, and he got in touch to say, if beyond your means, look in the mirror. The problem is that so many millions of people lost self-control that the norm life in real debt. Remember, the worldhaveyoursay.com is our blog, and you can also get us on